Hi everyone and welcome to the Hodgepodge YouTube channel. I am Tara. I am here to help you with all your letterbox lessons, and this week's lesson is the hand drawn robin. So if it is that you want to know how to draw this or you want to do a draw along, the kit and everything is available from down below. I will pop a link in the description box. If it is that you've already got the stuff at home, absolutely fantastic. Feel free to watch along and give it a go yourselves. I would love to see how you create these things. Check out all our Instagram and Facebook details all below as well. And let's crack on. So what I'm going to do first is talk you through the kit and how we're going to basically turn the piece of paper into this little robin here. So first I'll talk you through the kit. This is everything that you need to make this little guy just here. So first most important thing is your reference photograph. This is included in the kit that we provide, and this is the one we're going to be using to look at the tonal values and everything of our robin. To draw the robin, I'm the first to admit I am a terrible freehand drawer. I can't do it. Normally I either use grids, but I found a new technique that I have two to show you, which is why you also have tracing paper as well as some graphite paper in your kit as well. So I'm going to show you both versions of that so that you can give it a go yourself, find which one works best for you. This is also going to be, it looks a little bit different because mine's on tracing paper, but you will have a line drawing of my robin that I've used to draw this little guy. So if you want to physically use the same one that I have done, I've already done the tracing for you. If it is that you want to trace this one yourself, all you would do is pop your tracing paper on and trace over, but I'll show you that again in a moment. Or if you're using the graphite paper, it will be just draw it straight onto the graphite paper. But again, I'll show you those tips in a minute. As well as that, you will also receive a print of my robin so that you can use that as a reference. You will also receive your paper as well, a good few pieces so that you can have a good practice, as well as everything here within your kit. I draw mine with just two pencils, a 4B and a HB. You can see the names of those on there. You can get them from pretty much anywhere. I also normally use a mono eraser, but for this particular kit I've provided you with this eraser pencil, which does exactly the same thing. A sharpener in case you get a bit of bluntness, and a bigger rubber for those bigger troublesome areas, as well as your pencil case as well. Now this is going to be a super special one. It hasn't got a design on it at the moment, but anyone who purchases the kit will receive the pencil case with my robin printed on there as well, so that's an extra special gift from us here at Hodgepodge. So let's get drawing our robin. So the first trick I'm going to show you is how to trace the robin. So I'm going to do that one first. So I'm just going to move everything out of the way and bring in the reference photo that I have got for you there. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the tracing paper, paste it over. Sometimes, I mean, we're doing a black and white image, so it might be a little bit trickier to do it, but you may have things like light boxes, or you may just use a window if it is that you can't see all of the lines that you are wanting to see. You don't have to pick out every single line detail on there. I tend to go for the stuff that is the shape, or anywhere that I see a big tone change. So that's what I'm going to show you how I do it now. So what I'm going to do to draw this particular side is the HB pencil, because it is just to pick up the lines on this side. So that's what I'll do now. So when you're drawing your tracing, you may pick up on different things to what I have done, which is absolutely fine. The joy with drawing is it doesn't matter if it is that they look different. At the end of the day, that's what makes them unique, so that isn't going to matter in the slightest. I really wouldn't worry too much about that. So this is my first sketch through, I would say. Again, it is literally the roughest sketch going. So I've noticed his eye, which is obviously an important part, the shape of his head, his tail going round there, his body, his legs, and I'll even put a little hint of the branch in there as well. So when you're tracing, the next port of call to do is to flip it over, and then we're going to swap over to the 4B pencil. Now the reason I switch over to the 4B pencil to draw this side of the bird is because the 4B is a lot softer than a HB and will transfer far more easily than a HB would. You can definitely do it with a HB, but it's much easier with a 4B. So all I'm going to do here is taking the 4B pencil, go straight back over the lines we've just drawn. And that is that side done. So now the plan is to flip it over and get our paper in now. So this is the watercolour paper that I'm using. I love drawing on watercolour paper, it's the reason I've included it in your kit. It's only a 200 GSM, so I wouldn't recommend it for free watercolour paper, but for actual drawing it's perfect. So what I'm going to do is bring back the image that I used originally, so this one. So you can see I've drawn on it a few times, and that's the good thing with the tracing paper. You can continue to draw the same bird as many times as you like. So now all we've got to do, I will go back to the HB pencil because it's a little bit harsher to imprint that 4B pencil onto my paper. So I'm just going to line it up to where I think he needs to go, and then I'm going to get my HB and go back over all the lines in the hope that this will all transfer over. Pretty much all of my bird. I've just done this here because this on the reference photo, this patch here, is completely white, so that reminds me that I need to be careful with my tone and shade in there a bit later on. Put in our branch, and yeah, I think that's me pretty happy with where he is. I'm just going to double check. Yeah, that's better, perfect. So that's how I will draw the image using the tracing paper. I have just noticed again that I have missed a line over, which is this one here. Now I'm not massively concerned about it, but if I am a bit worried, I can try and line it up a little bit like that and then just draw it back in. Like I say, I'm terrible at forgetting stuff, so there we go, that's in there now. So that is how you would use the tracing paper. Now, when it comes to the graphite paper, if you'd like to transfer it over using the graphite paper, I'll show you how to use that technique now. So I'm going to pop this one up here out the way and bring in another one just so as I can show you. You can see I've already transferred pencil onto my drawing. And don't do what I did. So the graphite paper, pretty much exactly the same premise. I'm going to tell you to use the outline that I've provided you with in this instance. Yours will be on paper, mine is on tracing paper because I've just drawn it. You bring in your carbon paper and pop it underneath face down, and then exactly the same thing as before. So what we'll say is it might be easier to fix it in one position using a bit of masking tape to save you worrying about it moving around, or because it's a lot trickier to see where you're at with this one. so it might be a bit better to pay attention to where you're doing your lines. But so pretty much exactly the same thing. You just go straight over with your HB onto the graphite paper. If you lift up, you can see all of those on there. Now, you don't have to press as hard with the graphite paper because obviously it comes across straight away. So as you can see, that is all there for me, ready to go. Now, with that one, it's a lot harsher than I would particularly want it to be. So all I would do is rub off these excess bits here and potentially go over it a little bit. But if you go in that hard in, it really doesn't matter. It will rub out, and like I say, don't panic too much. The only thing to remember with the graphite, obviously, it transfers a lot easier. You get a lot of uses out of the graphite paper as well if you're wanting to do more than one. My particular favourite way to do it is the tracing paper because it gives you that little bit of subtlety. But if we have a look at our image here, if I'd have done this with the graphite paper, I can see that there's a couple of lines that may be a bit too harsh and will come through quite a lot on my image. This one, obviously, I've made a mistake there, so I would rub that one out. Because I've drawn it quite hard for you to see it on the image, it's going to be a lot harder to show you. But yeah, I think I'm pretty much happy with him. So I'm going to go back to my tracing paper one because that's the one I love working with, so I'm going to show you how to do that one here now. So now we have drawn him, I'm just going to rub off the pencil on my table. There we are. So now what I'm going to use is this one and this one as my reference, and then if you want to as well, you can also keep this one to hand as well if you're wanting to compare my tonal and what have you. Now, if you're wondering what I mean when I talk about tonal values, it's basically the different colours that are on the bird. Now, you're probably thinking there's only one colour on there because it's a black and white image. But there's loads. There's absolutely loads of different tones on there. Just shimmy on my chair. But if you're stuck on what you are going to be classing as tonal values, you can make yourself a tool. Or you can print one off. There's lots of different ones available. This is how I make my tonal value tool. I used a 4B pencil to shade from dark to light across a page, and this helps me then discover what is dark, what is not. So this bit here is extremely black, so we know that that's going to be the darker tone of the tonal value. Whereas if I take that darkness over to this patch over here, I can completely see that's a completely different tone, complete other end of the spectrum, so I can slide it up and then that can kind of give me the idea of where I need to be based. It's very, very, if at all, any pencil there for that particular one. Same as the eye, I know that the eye is going to be extremely dark, whereas this section of his tummy is more of a mid-range tone. It's not very dark, but it's not very light. So this is a great tool that you can use. Like I say, there's lots of tutorials on how to make a tonal value tool, but I'm going to show you how I do my sketches here in front of you now. So when drawing, I do it slightly differently to if you've seen me do watercolour paintings. When I do my watercolour paintings, I always start with the lightest areas first. When I'm drawing, I do the complete opposite. I start with the darkest areas first. So for this, I'm going to be using my darkest areas as my 4B pencil. So I've got everything to hand for if I need it, but the first thing I'm going to do is pick out the darkest areas on my bird. So for instance, in this case on our robin, it's going to be the tail end here. It's extremely dark under his wing. The very tip of his tail there is extremely dark. His beak is definitely dark. We've also got his eye, which is almost completely black apart from that tiniest little speck there. And we've got his underbelly here. So this is where I will start off. Now I tend to colour in the direction, shade in the direction, you can tell I'm not a proper teacher, of the feathers. So in this instance here I will be looking at this sort of curvature. Same with here, it'll be nice long straight pieces here. So this is where I am going to start, and I can already see that I've not included one of my lines from my tracing paper, so I'm just going to bring that back in and put it on so as I can actually see where my shading goes up to. This is one of the reasons I do say to include the shading parts, because it really does help with where you place certain aspects. So I've missed this line out here. So I'm just going to go back over that. There we are. So I know now that this side of the line is going to be extremely dark and this side of the line is going to be much lighter. So I'm going to start off just shading those darker areas. So with the 4B, because it's so soft, it can go a lot darker, a lot quicker than some of the other ones. So I know, looking here, it's all black down here. Now with your pencil drawings you may get mucky, do not worry about it, it all washes off. Definitely got that line there on, so I'm just going to get rid of that line there. So I know that that black line pretty much comes up here. And as I'm coming towards this line, I'm lifting my pencil slightly, so as it's not as harsh on the page. So really lifting that pencil there. Okay, just wipe my hand off because as you can see I'm already getting smudges on my page because I've been messing around with my original drawing, but do not worry, that's what this rubber is for. So that is this section here. Now I'm going to look for the next darkest bit. Let's have a look. I'm going to go for the eye because I think the eye is extremely dark. I'm going to twist my paper around and go in with this one. So again, the whole thing is pretty much black except for that tiny spot. There we go. I think I'm quite happy with that. It might be that you're not happy with the shape of it afterwards, but that's absolutely fine. That's what rubbers are for, it's all good. So now I'm going to go in with the beak. See the whole of the underside of that beak has got that really dark stripe. And a little pop at the end. And the darkness of the top of the beak is quite shaded in the centre, so I've left that little white bit there, and this bit here I'm going to colour the end of his beak and then stop, because obviously we can see that there's a lot much paler there. So next, definitely here is very dark. It's probably not quite as dark as here, but I'm going to go in here with not as much pressure, but just to get the shape of the robin coming in. And that shade goes right up this line here, which I've got in. I'm not sure whether you can see that line there, but it is there just about. I can see here it's even darker than the tone I've done here, so I'm just going to go a little bit darker in there. Brilliant. So next is where we start to get a bit messier. So using my finger, I'm going to smooth this out so that we get this gradual tone. There is a lot of detail here that I don't want you to worry about. So the lines of the feathers, if I bring my reference photo in that I've drawn, you can see there's absolutely no detail of feathers there, but because of the tone I've used, it gives you that impression that it's a fluffy bird. So it's definitely not something you need to worry about at all. You can also see here that this section here is quite dark, so before I smudge that out, I'm just going to pop a little bit of shading under here, under his tum, because you'll find that as we shade it out, it'll go a lot lighter, so we may need to come back in with this afterwards to lighten it up. So taking whichever finger you prefer, I tend to use my index finger, just gently smudge that 4B out. Do not worry if it goes outside of the bird, because that's what your rubber's for. See how you're getting that gradual shift of tone up there, which is absolutely fine. And this is the patch that I left white, so I know not to go up past that line. So that's like that for you. You may need to wipe your finger off just then to continue, but this has got a bit lighter now, so I'm going to go back in with it. Still with my 4B pencil, I'm not doing anything different. There we go. So I'm happy with my darkest tones so far. I know I've got some dark tones on here, but I'm going to come back to the wing afterwards. I am now going to switch to my HB pencil though, so that I can get those mid-tones in that section that we've just smudged out. So I'm just going to follow the way of the feathers again. I can see that this is pretty much an even tone apart from the white highlights, which is okay. I'm going to go back in with the white highlights later on, which I'll show you how to do that. But I know that this now, very lightly I'm shading this over. You may not be able to see much difference on the image, but I can promise you it is there. So what I'm doing is following this section here and then up to this curvature up here. Just like that. And then bringing it up to that tummy just there. And again, because we know that that fades out up here, we know that the shading goes all up his back, this slightly darker tone before this tone before his eye. So I'm going to follow that all up Mr. Robin's back. And to his head there. Again, get my finger, smoothing that out nicely, just like that. Now you're probably thinking, how the hell does that become a robin? It's not looking very robin-y like, but I promise you it will get there. So, next thing I'm going to look at is Robin's redbreast, because it's extremely hard, and this is one of the things I found hardest when I was doing the tester for it. So when I was actually drawing this image, I wanted to really differentiate so that you could see that little bit of red, which obviously when it's a black and white image, it's a lot harder to emphasise that, which isn't a problem. I've mastered it. So this again is a very similar tone to this down here. So I'm going to go back in now to do the Robin's redbreast, just very lightly. And if you're not sure how lightly you should be pressing, just have a bit of a go at just getting a squiggle of paper and going from dark to light, and then you'll kind of know what kind of pressure you should be putting on. So following this here, that beak has come down a little bit too low, so I'm just going to increase that up there a little bit, that's fine. I'm just lightly shading where I know this red breast is going to be. I can see this darker tone here, so I can press that a little bit harder for here. And then I'm going to go in and finish doing this red breast down here. So it goes all around here. And then I'm going to get my finger again, really smooth that out. Now, you'll see I've just covered that white patch I was trying to avoid. Okay, that's what the rubber's for. So I'm just going to go back in with that rubber, highlight that back up again. There we are. So now you can really see the roundness of the bird coming out. It may not look like it at the moment, but it is definitely getting there. Birds always go through what I call an ugly duckling stage, so please do not worry about it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm still with my HB, so I'm going to switch over to my 4B, and I'm going to try and go in with these dark tones again. We can see that this is much darker up here, so I need to do something with that. So that's where I'm going to start, on the top of the head, just going in. And now you can have a bit of fun with the lines that you're doing. This is where you'll get that impression of feathers with your lines. So all I'm doing is just going in with the odd line, and you'll see I'm getting much more line than shade, but that's giving the impression, or it will give the impression of feathers when it comes towards the end. So I'm just shading all this dark tone there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. A little bit darker here, but as I can see, that darker tone goes all the way down the back. So if I bring my reference picture in again, I did it here, and it goes all the way down the back, and then it goes ever so dark here, which I know I'm nowhere near as dark as I need to be down here. So I'm just going to follow the back of the robin all the way down with the 4B pencil still. Like this. And I can see that it's got a really dark patch just along the back there, so I'm going to go in there like that. And then again, just above the wing here, this wing line, it's got a couple of dark spots just there. So that's where I'm going to use my guide, use it as my guide, sorry, for it to be my really dark beats. So I'm going to really go in there with that. Now I'm going to go back to my HB because I want to get this tone at the top of him. Now I can see that this tone here is definitely darker than the red breast here, so I know that it needs to be lighter than this section, but obviously darker than this section here. So that's where I'm going to use the line here that I made earlier as the guide. So I know that it needs to be around there, and I can see there that that wing rounds all the way around. If I want to pop a line in there to give me a guide, that's absolutely fine. There we go. So this is going to be following this direction for those feathers. So I'm just going to go back in. I know that I need to be darker than here, so I'm just going to go in there. But as you can see, I'm very lighter compared to here. And I'm just shading that whole top of the wing. Just there. Again, I'm going to shade that in a little bit with my finger. Brilliant. And then I'm going to start to add these little bits here with the HB as well, just to give... We don't have to highlight every single feather, but these two here are really, really prominent, so I'm going to make sure those ones are included. And as you can see, they are quite dark at the end. I'm using my HB at the moment just to pop that line in. Fab. So now I'm going to work on this tail here to get that darkness, because we can see that it's extremely dark with the couple of highlights, and then this tail bit under here, which I think I'm going to bring this down a bit lower than my drawing, because I think it looks a little bit nicer. So that's that tail here. So this here, I can see he's got a line that goes right down the centre, so it's obviously 2 long feathers, so I'm just going to split this section into 2 a little bit better, as you can see. And then I know I'm going to go really dark here, because it's pretty much exactly the same tone as that back end of the robin. But being wary, there's a couple of white patches there, so I'm not going in as dark as possible. But down here, it's definitely much darker. So with that 4B, you can really get that one in. And again, underneath here, it's very dark again as well. Very happy with that. It's definitely getting the right sort of tones. I know what you're thinking, it still looks nothing like this one just yet, but we've still got a bit of a way to go. So now I'm going to start to do a bit of work on this here. Now there's lots and lots and lots of lines on there. I'm not going to draw every single line. I'm going to use the rubber a little bit later to highlight this as well. But what I am going to do is go in with these dark sections. So you can see there's still a little bit more dark underneath the wing there. So I'm going to bring my 4B back in. And it kind of curves around, if I can show you that. So it's kind of giving me this sort of shape. So I'm going to try and create that sort of shape with my shading. So it looks like it comes up just above his leg. I'm going to say to about there. So this is the bit I'm going to look at now. So it's really, really dark tone, pretty much all the way around that wing there, up to here. So I'm just going to go in a little bit darker, using the 4B again, just going over that line I already put in earlier on, going in quite dark. Now this is where I'm going to pay attention to the tone on that wing. So I'm going to turn the page so that I can see what's going on here. So it's pretty much dark right down here, which I think we've pretty much got right there, so that's about right. I'm going to follow that line up to here, which is probably a bit thicker, but I can cope with that. This tone here is still not quite right, but I'll come back to that in a moment. But this is the bit, so it goes, starts to lighten up around here, I'd say. That's where it tends to blur back into this tone up here. So I'm going to go in with just some dark, not terribly harsh, but just some dark lines in. You'll notice that I'm not being perfect with it at all in the slightest, because these lines are much closer together than mine. So I'm just going in that direction with the lines, because then I will get the more highlights when I come back in with the rubber a little bit later. So here I can see it's a little bit darker, so I'm going to go a little bit darker there. And then here it's more darker and lighter here with the tones, so I'm going to, because it looks quite a flat one here, I think I'm going to introduce this bit here and just shade it slightly up. So it's really dark towards the end of the wing here, and then just lift and make it slightly lighter there. So you've kind of got this dark patch here, which is similar to here. And again, those lines there for that one. Brilliant. So here, I'm going to switch to my HB because it's more of a mid-tone. So just shade that top of the wing there with that mid-tone. And I'm going to stick with my HB now for a little while to darken this mid-tone up here. So again, I can be a little bit scribbly now, if that's even a word, because I want to start to show those feathers, and that's going to come through the tones I'm using. So if you can see, I'm doing it in lines, if that's even. It's really going to start to bring the character of the bird out. Now I know there's a lot of lighter tones on here, I'm not too worried about that at the moment. Now look at his back, it's looking a little bit pale. So I'm going in with my HB again. So the tone here from the red breast carries on all up this side here, so I'm just going to carry that on to about here. And then the dark tone here pretty much sweeps straight across his back, kind of like that. So that's this line that I'm following here. And then because it's the lighter tones, I'm just shading that back in. He's definitely starting to come out of his shell now. Just smooth that in with my finger. Beautiful tones there. And you can really see, it's probably a little bit too white at the moment and we will work it out, but you can see this light pale bit going across here. You can really see that going across there, which is brilliant. So I'm just going to notice that next to his eye, this shading is extremely dark. I don't know whether I can show you that a little bit better. This point here, it's almost like a V. I'm going to try and pop that in now behind the eye here. So it's literally just a little V. And then I can see that that goes quite nicely up to this bit here, which should be darker. So I'm going to go back in with my 4B now and get that dark. Easiest thing to remember is if you want it darker, the 4B will get you there. If you want it lighter, go in with the HB. Now I'm literally just going over and looking for some dark patches. I can see there's a couple of lines, so following it down I can see that bit there, so I'm going to go a little bit darker there. This is where you can have a bit of fun with it. It's your interpretation of the bird. So I can see that. And this line here is actually a lot darker, so I'm going to press in a bit harder there and a little bit harder here. Again, it's very dark on that very top of his head, so I'm just going to go back in. That goes almost across the back of his eye. Now this bit here, it's obviously a lot softer, so I'm going in very lightly here. I'm still with my 4B at the moment, but I could potentially change to my HB. So let's sort this red breast out now. So I'm going to add in just some very light strokes. That can go a little bit darker, just to get the impression of those feathers. So if I bring this one back in, you can see I've got those impressions of the feathers, just ever so lightly, because this is very, very bright, and this is my interpretation of getting those feathers in there. You might want to do it differently, which is absolutely fine, but that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to just give him a bit of a fluffy line down there, and use that to then see that this bit here needs to be a bit darker, so I can go in there with that. And he really is starting to come together now. Now, looking at this tail, I've really not done anything with this bum end here, so I'm just going to add in that darker tone there. And he's got a random feather there, so we'll add that one in. Again, we've got his second wing that is behind him here, but I want him to have a bit more of a fluffy bum, because if you look here, I've given him that little bit of fluffiness here, whereas he's looking quite smooth. And if anyone's seen a robin, when they ruffle their feathers, I think they look amazing. So all I'm going to do is just use my 4B just to stretch those feathers out a little bit. And then, even though I've covered it, I'm still going to add in that wing at the back. There. Which is absolutely brilliant. I love how this section is looking now. It's looking great. So now is where we get to have a bit more fun. So I'm just going to increase the tonal up here a little bit with my HB, because it's not quite dark enough. There's not too... This is where I struggled when I did the test, because although the tones are very similar, they're the right tone, I couldn't differentiate a normal bird to a robin. So this is where I took this, I used my artistic impression, or whatever it is, artistic license, just to go ever so slightly darker around the robin's red breast, just to give, and I'm also going to add this little bit of shading in here by his beak. I think the ugly duck staging is definitely leaving us now. I'm not happy with that there, so I'm just going to rub. Wasn't keen with the shape of the beak that I did originally, so I've just rubbed that bottom bit out. Going back in with my HB. That's much better. Just to fill that back in. Oh yes, definitely. Back to my 4B, because I need to just pop in the bottom of that beak again that I've just rubbed out. On the top of that beak. There. Brilliant. So I'm still back on my HB now, and this is where we get to turn into more of a fluffy robin. So we've got pretty much everything in here now, the tonals and everything are there. Now we get to have a bit of fun with it. So you'll see I've got really dark bits here and really light bits here. That's where you get your mono eraser or your pencil eraser, in this case, that I have supplied in the kit. Just get that one out there. And what this is basically a rubber in the shape of a pencil, so you can really get those pinpoints and get that real detail in there. So we know that this is looking a bit too dark, so I'm going to really try and highlight some of those bits now with this rubber. So best way to do it, just go for it. So I can see that I'm going to try and highlight this curve here, and just go in with it, just have fun. And it really does lighten it back up again. So, just like that. So it's really lightening him back up again. But it also shows that lightness in there. You can see that this needs to be a little bit lighter, so I'm just adding that in there. And then there's a couple of patches up the back, not a problem. And then 2. Brilliant. And then again on this wing here, I might even go in with the bigger rubber on this one, but we'll see if I can do it with the pencil rubber. You can really see how that really highlights them. And you know what, if you take too much off, which I probably have done a little bit there, you can go back in. So I'm just going to go back in with that 4B just to put in a couple of the dark lines again, just like that. So I'm really happy with how that's looking there now. So now to bring that fluffiness to this front. Now it's quite smooth here, and what I've noticed, if you can see on the image, is it's kind of like a crisscross. It's almost lines going that way, then lines going this way for the feathers. So this is what I'm going to mimic in my pencil lines now, just to demonstrate. So if I get this piece of paper here, so as I'm going to be doing it, I'm going to be following this sort of action. So that for that way, and then that for that way. So basically doing like a cross hatching, and then that kind of mimics the feathers. Now I'm not making a big harsh drawing of it, but you'll get the motion that I'm making if it is that the camera's not picking it up. So I'm going to start in the darker area and basically just work my way up the bird, not all the way, but just some of the way, so that he's still got that tone there. And again, he's going a bit darker than I want at the moment, which is fine. I'm going to go back in with that rubber afterwards. Now I'm up to the lighter toned areas. I'm going to switch back to the HB and just add in here that darker patch there, so it's a little bit more pronounced, and then just add in those couple of extra lines to make it look more robin feathery. Bring that right down, and he's got a couple of, and the good thing is with your kit that you purchase from us direct, you get loads of, you get more than one copy, more than one piece of paper, so you can definitely practice. So I'm going in with the larger rubber here just to pick up those really white bits that I've now pushed in a little bit too much. I'm gonna just dab the rubber around there because it's a little bit too dark for my dark for my liking. And just add in that shadow back around here, so that it's got that little bit of tuft. That's better. So that is that there. Again, just add in a couple of extra lines just to... So this bit is now the bit I'm going to go in with the highlight rubber. So again, just following that same motion that I did here with the rubber instead of the pencil, and just basically doing exactly the same thing. And if it is that it's too dark to pick it up, it's not a problem. I can do exactly the same thing with a very sharp edged rubber. So you can do that by getting your larger rubber like this, and using the corner of it just to get those lines in, because it goes all the way up here, all the way down. There we are. I'm just going to get rid of my finger smudges now. It always happens. And we're pretty much nearly there. So all I'm going to do now is just add in some more of these squiggles until I'm happy. It's completely up to you if you want to add more in. You can use my photo as a reference. whether you want to or not. I'm just going to smooth that back out a little bit. And that's pretty much it, apart from his legs, I think. I've forgotten his tail here, so I'm just going to go in there and do that. He's looking like a little robin finally. And then just a little bit higher. And then I never really pay much attention to the legs, in all honesty, because the majority of the detail is in the bird itself. So we'll just do that here, just so we know that the robin's got some feet. I really don't do that much detail on them. Just do it like this. And maybe add in a bit more of a hint of a branch that is sat on. Nothing too much though, I don't think it needs it. Give him a bit of a clean up. And I'm pretty happy with him. If it is that you're worried about how your bird's looking, you can always rub bits out, do not panic. If it is that you discover your own style, amazing. Don't ever stress about it not looking like mine at all. I'm just adding some extra in now. This is where I need to learn to stop, because I do just keep going. But yeah, I'm really, really chuffed with him. I think I might make a little bit darker just there. Yeah, that's better. There's just something about it when you're drawing that there's so many different ways it can go. Until you're happy with it, to be honest. There we are. Lovely. And then the only thing left to do is to sign him off. I say only thing left to do. I'm just going to shade that eye a little bit more because it's a little bit too white. There we go. And there we have it. Sign him off. You have got at least, I think it's 4 pieces of paper in there to practice your robin. It sometimes doesn't happen straight away, it sometimes takes a good few goes, but you know what, the more you practice, the more you'll get it. And the best thing is that no two will look the same, so even though I've done exactly the same bird from exactly the same picture, they both look completely different. But he's definitely a little robin, which is super, super cute. So yes, just add that there. I'm comparing the two now, which is never a good thing to do. This is why I say you can use mine as a reference, but that is my completed robin. And that's it, all done. So now you will have your very own robin. I would absolutely love to see your versions of these little guys. Feel free to send them via Facebook, Instagram. I would absolutely love to see them. I might even have a maker of the month. I think that might be a good thing to do. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you do have any questions, please feel free to give me a shout. I do not mind, I will get back to you as soon as I physically can. I hope you've enjoyed giving this one a go, and I can't wait to see how yours have turned out, and I look forward to seeing you in our next YouTube video. If you did find this helpful, please give us a thumbs up. If you love seeing what we do and you'd love to see more of it, please feel free to head over to our Ko-fi page to support us. I'll pop all the details below. All donations are gratefully received because it allows us to carry on doing the things that we are doing and love to do, which is helping you guys. So thank you so much, guys, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Bye.